rolled out the red carpet for Zakir Naik. He's met with Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and also the Deputy Prime Minister Ishaq Dar. He's slated to meet with the Pakistan Army Chief Asim Munir later this week. Now the question is this not a deliberate and malicious provocation by our Western neighbour? How can Pakistan, on the one hand, say it wants better relations with India, it wants to have full diplomatic ties, the restoration of high commissioners, etc., trade relationship to be restored. On the other hand, it rolls out the red carpet for someone who is an economic fugitive offender here in India, someone who is a persona non grata. And like I said, someone against whom there are terror charges, charges of disturbing communal peace and amity, and charges of foreign exchange violations. Is this classic double speak? But first, the story so far. All right, is this Islamabad's way of provoking New Delhi? Let's try and open this up to our guest, Major Retired Gaurav Arya, Defence Analyst, now joining us, Lieutenant General Retired Sanjay Kulkarni, former Chief of Staff of the 14 Corps, and DG Infantry, RP Singh, National Spokesperson of the BJP, and Kamar Chima, Pakistani Strategic Affairs Expert, will also be joining us. Major Arya, let me start with you first, and before I come to you, this is what the red carpet that's been rolled out by the Pakistan government for this controversial Islamist preacher Zakir Naik. He's been invited officially by the Shehbaz Sharif government for a month-long visit to Pakistan. He's been provided extensive state security, including armed escorts wherever he goes. He has already met with Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Deputy Prime Minister Ishaq Dar. Later this week, he is slated to meet with the Chief of Army Staff, General Asim Munir. The Pakistan Prime Minister, Mr. Sharif, commended Zakir Naik for, quote, positively projecting Islam. I mean, should India just look at all of this and, not react and just sit on its hands, for want of a better phrase? I mean, isn't this an open provocation?
Thank you for inviting me on your show. No, see, you have to look at it from Pakistan's context. Who else is going to come to Pakistan? If anybody has any notions that Elon Musk is going to be in Pakistan or Sundar Pichai is going to be in Pakistan, that's not the case. Nobody comes to Pakistan. Yes, the Malaysian Prime Minister has landed, but that too because Pakistan came so many times. He'll come, he'll sign some weird MOUs and he'll go back and nothing is going to come out of the visit. Secondly, you said that he was an economic fugitive in India, an economic offender. Apart from other things, but so is the current Prime Minister's elder brother. He was in jail for exactly the same thing, and this is why even Imran Khan, amongst other FIRs on him, so everybody in Pakistan is doing exactly the same thing. Now, you see, a nation that calls Osama bin Laden a martyr on the floor of the parliament, a nation that says that the Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed are heroes to the Pakistani people, that Osama bin Laden is a hero. I mean, what are we expecting from Pakistan? This is natural. For them, he's a hero. For them, it's like, it's a very big deal for Pakistan that he has chosen to come to Pakistan. And for them, I mean, this is the best thing that could happen to Pakistan. I don't know about the provocation part, but they are so happy. They're so happy.
Pakistan is free to invite whoever they want to invite, roll out the red carpet as a state guest, etc., etc. But here's the litany of charges against Zakir Naik here in India. And I want to ask you about this duplicity. On the one hand, Pakistan says, the impediment to normal relations, the impediment to better ties between Delhi and Islamabad is actually the Indian government, not the Pakistani government. Here's what Zakir Naik is wanted for here in India: for promoting terror, inciting youth to commit unlawful activities and terrorist acts, egregious foreign exchange violations, FCRA violations. His company, the Islamic Peace Foundation, received huge amounts of foreign funding, violating FCRA norms. He's also accused of disturbing peace by promoting hatred between two communities. And as I mentioned a moment ago, and Major Arya also said, the Enforcement Directorate moved to declare him a fugitive economic offender under the Fugitive Economic Offenders Act 2018. Now, here's the thing. Pakistan, like I said, is rolling out the red carpet for a man accused of all of these things, promoting terror, disturbing communal peace and harmony, and is an economic fugitive offender, and at the same time expecting India to extend the hand of friendship. That is the problem. General Kulkarni.
Thank you, Zaka. If I can, say it in a lighter vein or joke a little, which I generally don't do, he seems to have been promoted to Havaldar by Pakistan here. I think something which Pakistan should have realized it. Pakistan uses terror as an instrument of, of a state policy. And imagine inviting a man who incites his communal hatred. And what are they writing? The Prime Minister writes, insightful speaker. Something Naik himself should have realized. Since 2016 is not here in the country, and there is out. And I don't think we can have good relations with Pakistan if Pakistan continues to do this way. Either he is absolute a fugitive, a man who's involved in terror financing, hate speeches, incite communal hatred, money laundering. His TV channel has been banned. The app has not been banned, and this TV channel banned by who all? India, Canada, Bangladesh, UK. All of them have banned the TV channel because they have all realized that here's a man. I think Pakistan should have understood this and definitely not given him a red carpet welcome. Well, they're free to do. I think that's the way they would also look at it. And then being given, the way he's meeting the president, the prime minister, he's meeting everybody. He's going to meet the next chief of the army staff of Pakistan. Is that what he deserves? A person who's wanted by India is being welcomed by Pakistan. And if Pakistan expects good relations with India, definitely a big no.
So, Kamar Chima, this is what the Pakistan Prime Minister said of Zakir Naik when he met him for over an hour at the Prime Minister's residence. Mr. Shahbaz Sharif commended and congratulated Mr. Zakir Naik for what he called positively projecting Islam in India. Now, here is some of the stuff that Zakir Naik has said about Islam. Forget about, all the economic offences, the terror offences that he's wanted for here in India. But these are his quotes, Zakir Naik's quotes about Islam, and I want you to please pay attention. Islam is superior to all other faiths. Non-Muslims should not be allowed to have places of religious worship in an Islamic country. Every Muslim should be a terrorist. The thing is that if Osama is terrorizing the terrorist, then he is following Islam. Girls should not be sent to schools where they lose their virginity by the time they pass out. Muslims have the right to sex with their female slaves. Is this gentleman really projecting, as the Prime Minister of Pakistan said, promoting Islam's message and positively projecting Islam from the quotes that I just read out to you?
Well, Zaka, I'm not a fan of Mr. Zakir Naik. I consider him, he's a sympathizer of Al-Qaeda. He has many issues, and the government of Pakistan should not have invited him as a guest, as a state guest. In my understanding, this should be the last thing the government of Pakistan should do. One thing, but the point is that if India has a problem with Zakir Naik, that doesn't mean we should listen to India. India has problem with many things. For example, and let me quote Dr. Jaishankar, India's Minister for External Affairs, who just said that the bilateral sanctions do not matter. Does the UN Security Council have any kind of sanctions Zakir Naik? Has UN General Assembly sanctioned Zakir Naik? So the question is, what India has a problem with Zakir Naik, that is a completely different thing. But as a student of politics, in my personal understanding, it doesn't matter what India has a problem, because India has a problem not just with Zakir Naik, but with the millions of Muslims within India.
One second. That's a gross exaggeration. That's a gross exaggeration.
No. This is not a gross thing. Just today, United States Commission on International Religious Freedom put India as a country of particular concern when it comes to religious freedom.
They are hardly an advertisement for communal amity and peace between religious communities. Come on, let's not use these egregious examples. But okay, I take your point. Yes, India has a problem with Zakir Naik. Pakistan does not have to listen to it. Fair enough. That's a fair point. RP Singh, respond. You have a problem. Government of India has a problem with Zakir Naik. Why should Pakistan listen to you?
Well, in that case, tomorrow, right, TTP chief also,
Yeah.
who's creating trouble for Pakistan. Will they accept that? What is his name? Noor Wali.
Nurwali Masood. Nurwali Masood. You should invite him. He should be a state guest.
So he should. We can call him as a state guest,
Well,
or one
I
of the
think-
states of the union can call him as a state guest. Will they accept it? So we all know what are they up to. And then he is not even Islamist. He is a radicalist. I mean, Islam doesn't preach to kill other people or terrorize other people. I mean, if that is the theory of Islam, then God bless the Pakistan and God bless Mr. Zakir Naik also, who's preaching all this. And then we have seen, I mean, what happened in Bangladesh in 2018, the terror bomb blast. You remember that
The Dhaka Cafe blast. Yeah.
Dhaka 2016 terror bomb blast.
Yeah.
So who was behind that? We all know who was behind that. And why did Malaysia also, the country he was in, banned his speeches also? Well, we know that he was not towing the land of Islam, towing the line of Islam. So there is a difference between Islamic preacher and a terror preacher. He is not an Islamic preacher. He is a terror preacher.
So Chima Saab, if India were to invite, Nurwali Masood of the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan or Ehsanullah Ehsan of the TTP, or even, let's say, for example, Bashir Baloch of the Balochistan Liberation Army, and treat them as a state guest, that would be okay with you, right? As you said, it's Pakistan's problem. Why should the government of India care?
Well, Zaka, let me add to your knowledge. The Baloch militant organization, which you mentioned, is a UN designated Security Council. UN Security Council designated as a terrorist organization. The TTP is globally designated terrorist organization. If you want to,
I can name one or two globally designated terrorists in Pakistan. By name Hafiz Saeed, by name Masood Azhar. These are all UN globally designated terrorists, Chima Saab. Let's not forget.
The globally designated terrorist at your home, you are most welcome. We would love to see that, but you can't.
No. So if your yardstick is if UN has designated them global terrorists, then the world should act. Please, by all means, Hafiz Mohammed Saeed, that's his name. Masood Azhar.
He's in jail.
He's
facing the charges.
Okay, he's in jail. He's facing charges.
They're facing the charges. They are in jail. But if you want to invite the Baloch militant organization, which are designated
Major Arya, they're in jail. The globally designated terrorists in Pakistan are in jail. And there's nothing against Zakir Naik as far as any global censures are concerned.
Sure. I mean, technically speaking, Dr. Qamar Chima is absolutely right. I mean, yes, there is no UN sanction. And it is, as I said, there is no point in saying Pakistan should not do this or should not do that. It is, see, who received him at the airport, do you know? It is the chairman of the PMO. There is a PMO organization which looks after youth affairs. And he's being made to interact with the Pakistani youth. So if Pakistanis think that Dr. Zakir Naik is a youth icon, because that is where they are taking him, they're telling the children, Pakistani kids that take inspiration from this guy, you need to become like this guy. He's an Al-Qaeda supporter, all right? Okay, he's not sanctioned by the United Nations. That's all right. That's factually correct, what Dr. Chima said. But the fact of the matter is, this is what Pakistan wants to do. We have to understand. He's a hero for Pakistanis, for many Pakistanis. Why is he meeting the chief of the army staff? Arguably the most powerful man in Pakistan. He's going to be meeting the president. He's already met the prime minister. He's met so many people in Pakistan. This man is a national hero for the Pakistanis.
No, so when you say, Major, when you say that, he's being taken to young people in Pakistan, his sermons, his lectures are being made available for young people in Pakistan. That includes teachings like, and I quote from what he has said in the past, girls should not be sent to schools where they lose their virginity by the time they pass out. Muslims have the right to have sex with their female slaves. You're saying that the Pakistani establishment is happy that he teaches this to Pakistani youths.
That is what the Pakistani establishment believes, because we'll have to believe that also. I mean, if you want to have Osama bin Laden as a state guest for 6 years, what is the world to believe? That you believe in the philosophy of Osama bin Laden. Similarly, when you have Zakir Naik there, it's Pakistan's right to invite whoever. It's a sovereign country, and we have no business telling Pakistan, don't invite Zakir Naik. Why not? Okay. He's a hero.
So, Chima Saab, when you talk about globally designated terrorists, Osama bin Laden was also there in Abbottabad for a number of years, despite being globally designated terrorist, perhaps the most wanted terrorist in the world at that time.
Absolutely.
Qamar Chima?
Absolutely.
Well, on this account, I agree with Major Gaurav Arya on this position. that a person who is a hate preacher, a person who has been sympathizer to Al Qaeda, should not have been invited. The Pakistani military, the Pakistani community, the Pakistani civil society, the policemen, the law enforcement have given lives in fighting Al Qaeda and other terrorist organizations. So there is no point of calling. And just yesterday, he didn't meet the Pakistani girls. This Zakir Naik, he didn't, he dared to avoid the Pakistani girls. There was a foundation who invited him to give awards to the girls, and he went out of the stage. He left the stage and he said that I'm not going to give awards to the women, to the girls who were just 14, 15 years old. So obviously he is not I'm not sympathizer of Zakir Naik, and I think he should not have been invited at any cost. And I have openly said that on my other media platforms, on my media platform. So the point is that he is not a icon. We need to have Elon Musk.
So
we need
on
to have
the one hand,
we need to have other guys.
You have General Kulkarni in Pakistan, a person like Malala Yousafzai, who was forced to flee that country despite being attacked by the Taliban. She became sort of the symbol of resistance against the Taliban, a young woman. And now you have someone who is refusing to give awards to young Pakistani women because he believes that they shouldn't be sent to schools. I mean, that's the irony.
Dhaka, extremely sad. Extremely sad. I think as neighbor, Pakistan should not have done. And I'm glad Mr. Chima accepts it, that Pakistan should not have invited him. Because he is a man who advocates violence. Not just that, I remember in 2008, some fatwa was issued against him by a Muslim scholar in Lucknow for supporting Osama bin Laden, and therefore inciting violence. And they said his speeches are un-Islamic. Islam is a peaceful religion. One doesn't believe in, and nobody who believes in Islam would follow this person at all. Because look at the kind of, the words that he uses, the kind of discrimination that he does. A religion which takes everybody along. Here's a man who's inciting violence, who's involved in terror financing, who's doing total hate speeches. And despite that, Pakistan should have come forward to say, here's a man who seems un-Islamic talks, please take him over. Instead, being received by the Deputy Prime Minister, being, giving the honor by the Prime Minister of Pakistan. Look at this guest list he has. Look at the kind of lectures that have been organized for him till October 28th. Is that what it is all about? Is that the man that they need to do it?
So
I think it's sad state of
RP
affairs.
Singh Saab, India can cry hoarse for however long it wants to, Pakistan should not be doing this and Pakistan should not be inviting somebody as radical and controversial as Zakir Naik. A few weeks ago, the Prime Minister of Malaysia was here, and ostensibly Zakir Naik spends a lot of his time in Malaysia. In fact, India sent an extradition request to Malaysia as well. And the Prime Minister of Malaysia was asked about this in a press conference, and he said, if you give us evidence, we will extradite him. So which means what? We've not given the evidence so far, or the evidence is not good enough for him to be extradited? Last I checked, Malaysia was not an unfriendly country to India. We have full diplomatic ties with Malaysia.
Dhaka, Indian government has already given the dossier to the Malaysian government. It's up to the Malaysian government to act as fast as they can. But we also know that there are compulsions also. But that point aside, let's understand his visit to Pakistan. Just recently, Pakistan received some $7 billion from the IMF. Zakir Naik is known for lending money to various channels other than the political channels. I mean, could be that their PML, their Pakistan Muslim League would have been funded. He funded Rajiv Gandhi Foundation in India. Remember the 50 lakh rupees donation from his organization. So, Chima Sahab, check on this also. How much money is given to the Sharif, Nawaz Sharif or the Shehbaz Sharif for doing what he is doing or being welcomed in Pakistan? Is it coming free or is it coming with some load of money from Zakir Naik?
Chima Sahab, क्या टेबल के अंडर कुछ डीलिंग चल रहा है क्या?
I don't know about all that, what my friend RP Singh is talking, but the point is, the country like Pakistan, which has fought against terrorism, which is want to fight against extremism, definitely Zakir Naik is not ideal. He's not something who should have been welcomed, but yes, I respect the choice of millions of people who want to invite him, who want to have him on the table. But definitely what he did to the girls yesterday, This country has 50% women, girls who the Pakistani government really wants need to go to school, colleges. They need to be part of the workforce in the country. But
Okay.
at this point, if Zakir Naik doesn't want to see the Pakistani young girls and doesn't give an award, that is an embarrassment to the Pakistani women. And I think the Pakistani women, they need to stand up for this, and they need to raise their voice against Zakir Naik, that he's not our ideal. Our ideal should be someone who
So,
believes in inclusive thoughts, who believes in pluralism, who believes in moderation, who believes in a forward-looking democracy.
he's not a private guest. He's a guest of the state. The state has invited him. It's the state that is providing him security. It's the state that's asking him to go to all these institutions and distribute awards and so on. The state is actively overseeing all his programs. He's going to be there for a month in Pakistan as a guest of the state. But Major Arya, the next time India should consider inviting Bashir Zeb Baloch, who is the current leader of the Balochistan Liberation Army, or we should try and host someone like a Nurwali Mahsood, who is the head of the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, or Ehsanullah Ehsan, who in fact escaped from a Pakistani prison and is now threatening Pakistan from Turkey, I believe, or Hafiz Gul Bahadur, who is now an offshoot of the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. Why should India not roll out the red carpet for these folks?
In fact, Ehsanullah Ehsan was the person responsible for killing those kids in Army Public School, Peshawar.
Correct.
And he's in Turkey, and Turkey is an Islamic brotherly friend of Pakistan, and they swear by each other that, we are brothers for life. I don't think it makes any sense, because India has immense diplomatic goodwill in the world, which unfortunately Pakistan does not enjoy. So Pakistan will not lose out anything on the global stage by inviting Zakir Naik. Pakistan loses nothing. I mean, what did Pakistan lose? They had Osama bin Laden. So what? Nobody cares. Nobody cares. People have forgotten about it. But if India invites, you want to cock a snook and you want to tell the Pakistanis that, hum bhi bula sakte hain, hum bhi bulayenge, it will do us damage, because we are people with fantastic reputation in the world. What Dr. Jaishankar says, the world believes. The world does not ask India for proof. The world does not say, we want evidence. Once Dr. Jaishankar has said something, it's cast in stone. So I don't think we can endanger all that by inviting all these people, from other organizations who are against the state of Pakistan. But having said that, let me tell you one thing. We have to understand this, and I'm absolutely clear. I've been following Dr. Kamar Chima's videos on that aspect also, and though he's very much against Dr. Naik being invited, and he has said on his own video that Pakistan should invite people like Sundar Pichai and Elon Musk. Why not? And I agree with him there. But we must also understand, like you very rightly said, this is a state visit. This is the state of Pakistan saying that we love you, and you are the ideal our children should follow. This is the person who, according to the Pakistani state, represents the true spirit of Islam. I'm not saying this is the true spirit of Islam. I'm saying Shehbaz Sharif has said as much, that you have done so much for Islam. You're in the service of Islam. So according to the Pakistani state, the version of Islam that Dr. Zakir Naik speaks about is the original and true version of Islam. That is why the Pakistani state is giving him protocol. 1 month meeting the army chief. He will meet the president of Pakistan. He's already met the prime minister. This is very big as far as Pakistan is concerned.
Chima Saab, forget about everything else. The number of people who have died to Al Qaeda, to ISKP, to TTP, and these are organizations. I mean, here is a man who has praised Osama bin Laden and the diplomatic and international isolation that Pakistan had to face after what happened in Abbottabad in 2011. I mean, you are a living testimony of that. And for that man, Zakir Naik, to come and praise something that Pakistan got for hiding somebody for which Pakistan got international flack and condemnation, that in itself should be the reason why he shouldn't be a state guest. Forget about everything else that he says about Islam and women and so on. You're on mute. You have to unmute, please. Dr. Chima.
Let me tell you. Just last month, the Malaysian Prime Minister was in India. Did Prime Minister Modi raise this issue that why an Al-Qaeda sympathizer is in Kuala Lumpur? The question is that you want to have a business with Malaysia, but a country who is having your fugitive, a country who is having a person who left India, and you have dozens of charges against him. Did your government ask Malaysian Prime Minister to bring Zakir Naik on the same flight on which the Malaysian Prime Minister came?
No,
You
that
didn't
question
ask
was
him.
asked to the
So
Malaysian
why are
Prime
you having
Minister.
a problem?
And I asked
Why
that
are
to
you
the
having
BJP
a problem?
spokesperson also. And he says the
Listen,
request has already been made. The extradition request has already been made.
No. This is not something. Okay, you know what you have. We will do also something later on. The question is, and
No, no,
one
and
more thing
Shima
I want
Saab,
to
you
confirm.
very well
The army
know
chief.
extraditions are decided by courts of law. They're not decided by governments. Go on. Make your point.
Okay. And one more thing. I'm sure he's not meeting the army chief of Pakistan. Yes,
This is my
was the
information that
government.
later this week,
You know,
he
we
is
understand.
slated
You
to
know,
meet
the
General
credibility of
Asam
the
Munir.
information, the credibility of the Godi media.
Come on,
We all know
Shima
that.
Saab, you've been on
The
my show. You
credibility
know,
of the Godi media, we all know that.
my
So
shows are
let's
based
not
on
get
fact.
into-
But anyway, let's see. If he doesn't
Sure,
meet by next week, we'll have another show and we'll invite you again. All right?
Sure, why not?
Okay,
Why
we'll leave it at
not? I will be
that.
there.
Thank you very much to all our guests. Like I said, I'm very clear about this. Pakistan itself is doing a disservice to itself by inviting someone like Zakir Naik. Forget about whatever charges he is wanted for here in India. But let's now shift focus to the other big story, the world, the Middle East, on the brink of what could potentially be the first ever direct confrontation between Israel and Iran. So the whole world is watching what is going to be Israel's next move. Israel has vowed retaliation against Iran for the multiple rocket barrages that we saw on Tuesday night. But at the same time, the world is also worried whether this will spill over into a wider regional conflict, one that we can't quite claw back from. Joining us now is a very special guest. Reuven Azar is the Israeli ambassador to India. Thank you very much. And first of all, happy Rosh Hashanah to you and to all Israeli friends and colleagues.
Thank you, Zakir. Thank you for this interview.
But this is a difficult time for you as a country. It should be a happy time, the beginning of the Jewish New Year. The whole world is looking at Israel's next move, especially in light of what happened on Tuesday. First of all, your reaction to the barrage of rocket attacks, almost 200 of them that we saw on Tuesday night.
Oh, this, Zakir, indeed was completely unprecedented, and it's a flagrant violation of international law. Now, thanks to the excellent missile defense system that Israel has, one of the best in the world probably, we have managed to thwart this attack. And not only thanks to that, but also thanks to our coordination and cooperation, first of all with the United States, our main ally and supporter, and also with countries in the region that are also worried from what Iran is doing and are trying to defend their skies. Now, imagine a situation in which we wouldn't retaliate on this. What that would mean, not only for Israel, but also for all the countries in the region and for the international community, because when a rogue state like Iran is conducting itself in such a way, it means that this enters as a tactic that might be legitimized and might be used in the future by other countries. So we don't only have a right to defend ourselves, we have a duty to defend ourselves if we want this kind of attacks not to repeat again, and we have to be capable of going all the way. Now, of course, we would be very happy if more diplomatic pressure and more military pressure would be put on Iran by international players. But once we are attacked, we have the duty to defend our citizens. I remind you, Zakir, that we wanted to keep this confined to the Gaza Strip. We were attacked atrociously on the 7th of October, almost a year ago.
Yeah.
And those who have decided to escalate the situations were the proxies of Iran. So you got Hezbollah that started firing at Israel at the 8th of October. You had the Houthis, and we tried to get it into a diplomatic solution in the north. So the fact that they are doubling down again and again, each time that we are protecting ourselves, that means that Iran is interested in escalation.
But tell me this, Ambassador, surely Israel does have the right to retaliate. Any sovereign country has the right to retaliate, no doubt. But if you were to directly attack Iran, then we're pretty much looking at what the world has been warning about for over a year now, or close to a year now, that no one wants a wider regional war. How do you speak to that specific concern?
Well, you know, everybody bears responsibility. So my question is back to you. What have international players been doing to put pressure on Iran? because they are the source. They are the ones that actually have been trying not only to destroy us for the last 30, 40 years, but actually creating a situation in the Middle East that is unbearable. You know, terrorists in the past used to have AK-47s and maybe anti-tank missiles and pickups, okay? But now they have ballistic missiles and the means to produce them. Imagine a world, imagine a situation in which not only the Middle East, in other parts of Asia or Europe or Latin America, you would have rogue players like that. It's completely unacceptable. So when you fail to put pressure on Iran, the consequences are dire for us and they are dire for the world.
But it's one thing to attack the proxies of Iran, whether it's Hezbollah or Hamas or the Houthis. It's a wholly different, almost unprecedented, this is uncharted terrain if Israel were to directly attack Iran.
Well, the uncharted terrain was created by the Iranians when they decided to attack us directly. So we have to retaliate. The Prime Minister has said very clearly that Iran will pay, and I'm looking forward to see the result. It's not that we are enthusiastic to go to this war. A democratic country never does.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you have to deal with the situation. We have responsibility for the safety of our citizens, and this kind of conduct is completely unacceptable, and we have to deal with it.
The world wants to know, and I'm surely on a television program you're not going to reveal the nature of your response, but the world is concerned about the nature of Israel's response to Iran. The most damaging, of course, would be if you can hit the nuclear facilities of Iran, and that would set back their nuclear program. But you cannot do that without the help of the Americans. Just yesterday, last night, President Joe Biden has said that he will not assist Israel if Israel's plan is to hit one of Iran's nuclear facilities. How would you speak to that?
Well, we have to take into account the American position, no doubt, and we are having conversations, very deep conversation and very intensive ones with the American administration, which actually has been very supportive of Israel during this conflict. But at the end of the day, the ultimate responsibility sits in one chair. That's the chair of the Prime Minister of Israel and the cabinet of Israel, the elected cabinet of Israel that's been elected by the people to provide security.
But what would the objective of such a direct retaliation be? And how would you again speak to concerns that once you directly attack Iran, you won't be able to rein yourself back in? Both countries are then climbing the escalation ladder.
Well, first of all, I'm not going to get into specifics. That's up to the cabinet to decide. At the end of the day, anything that will be decided upon will have to bear the consequences and calculate the consequences of it. I don't envy the government. It is a huge responsibility. But again, Zach, I want to make it very clear. The world would be much less safer in a situation that Israel doesn't retaliate.
There are people in Israel, and I want to quote one of them, former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, who's tweeted saying that this is a lifetime opportunity, perhaps once in 50 years, to change the overall dynamic of the Middle East, to get rid of the Ayatollah regime in Iran and push back on Iran's nuclear program. Is that the prevailing mood in Israel, that perhaps this is an opportune moment to change the history of the Middle East?
I'm not sure that this is the prevailing mood in Israel. What I can tell you is the following. We have, for the first time, since the 7th of October, we have managed to cut or to severely damage two of the tentacles of this octopus named the Islamic theocratic radical regime in Iran. Gaza is no longer a threat on Israel. In Lebanon, we have managed to cut the head of the snake, took out Nasrallah and the entire leadership. Now our ground forces are making a very targeted operation to remove all the infrastructure that was built by Hezbollah to prepare an attack to conquer northern Israel. This is a game changer. To what extent we are going to continue with that and to what degree, this is going to be the sole decision of the government. But I want to tell you this. The Israeli mood is a mood of resolve, is a mood of conviction, because the people of Israel understand that this ultimate type of evil has to be confronted. And they have the motivation, they have the dedication, not only of the young soldiers that are going to the front, but also of the people that are eager for a moment in which our residents of the north will be able to go back home and that we get back our hostages.
You said that this is going to be a game changer, but there have been invasions of southern Lebanon at least 2 or 3 times in the past, and the last time Israel was accused of not finishing the job. Again, just yesterday we had reports of at least 8 Israeli soldiers dead in an operation in southern Lebanon. Even if the objective is to push Hezbollah back north of the Litani River, they can still hit northern villages in Israel sitting in Beirut. So how are you going to achieve that objective?
Right. So indeed, we have to do what we have to do in order to reach a settlement or a situation or a ceasefire that will implement Resolution 1701. And the question, how much force are we going to use in order to get to that result? In 2006, you are right, the international community drafted and approved this resolution. We had a ceasefire for almost 18 years that was breached by Hezbollah. We do not want to determine the future of Lebanon. It's up to the Lebanese people to decide what is going to be the future of Lebanon, whether Hezbollah will be dismantled or not. What we want to achieve is safety and security for our citizens. In every military action that you take, you have to put very, very definite aims and targets. We are not going to conquer the entire Middle East. This is not our aim. We are a democratic country. We don't want to go to wars. But what we are obliged to do is to supply security for our citizens, and that's exactly what we're going to do.
But you believe that this is an opportune moment for you to incapacitate Hezbollah to the extent that they are no longer a threat to your citizens in the north? Like I said, they can still hit you from Beirut or even further north.
Yeah, and we can still hit them. Look, at the end of the day, we have to concentrate in the aims. The aims is to clean the border, is to reach a ceasefire and make sure that these Radwan forces and any Hezbollah forces cannot go back to the border. And if this is achieved in a verifiable way, then we have a chance that Hezbollah will be deterred and we will have a long-term ceasefire.
I want to talk about the operation vis-a-vis Hamas. We're going to come up on the first anniversary of this war, the first anniversary of the terror attacks, and then subsequently the operation that Israel launched. You told me just now, and you told me last week as well, that you think militarily Hamas is not in a position to launch another October 7th scale attack. Why is this war still going on against Hamas? Why don't you declare a ceasefire?
Well, we have to bring back our hostages, and we have to make sure that Hamas cannot rearm and regroup. These are the aims that were defined by the Israeli cabinet. So we have to be patient. Sometimes things take time. And this pressure that we are putting on Hamas is going to continue until we achieve our goals.
But you're saying Hamas cannot launch another October 7th style attack on you?
Not now, but if we surrender to their claims or to their demands, that we can have it in the future. They want to use the hostages in order to extort a result that will allow them to assume power again in the Gaza Strip and to continue contrabanding weapons and rearm and regroup. We are not going to allow that.
The Western world, America, and even the mediators, Egypt, Qatar, from time to time have given this impression that Israel is the one that is the stumbling block to a ceasefire. And if tomorrow your government were to order a ceasefire, the remaining hostages would be released.
Well,
how do you speak to that?
The question is on what terms? We can always surrender to Hamas. That's very easy. But we will not. And actually, not only that we have designed this 3 phases approach, not only that it was approved by the United States, not only it was approved by the UN Security Council, but the spokesperson of the White House has said explicitly that the responsibility for not implementing this path is Hamas. Because they don't want to exchange prisoners. What they want is to survive and to return to the situation they had before October 7th.
But what about the price that you've had to pay? Israel is accused of killing 40,000 civilians, including women and children, in Gaza.
Well, every loss of life is tragic. And what Israel did, its performance in the Gaza Strip, taking into account the tactics that Hamas was using, of human shields, of abusing every rule in the book, okay? When you take it objectively from a military point of view and you compare it to other scenarios like Mosul, you would see that the ratio of combatants versus civilians is very, very low, 1 to 1.5 or 1.2, when in Mosul was 1.8. So I know that at least 10 military experts have stated that Israel has performed extraordinarily. So yes, this is a dear price. Wars have consequences. People have to understand that. When you take the entire population of the Gaza Strip, you indoctrinate them for 16 or 17 years to hate Israel, to kill the Jews, and you finally launch this attack, it has results. Israel had to take care of its security. We had to dismantle the infrastructure, the underground infrastructure, those who have abused hospitals and other humanitarian facilities. But we are doing the utmost to work with the international community to facilitate humanitarian assistance to Gaza. And even the children of Gaza were now vaccinated against polio. We are working together with the international community because we care about the civilians. And we are doing, by the way, the same in the north. You can see the evacuation notices that we are giving people in Beirut. We have given that in South Lebanon as well, despite the fact that Hezbollah also committed the double war crime.
So I do want to come back to the Iran question because that's what the world is consumed by. That's what the world is absolutely worried about. Prime Minister Netanyahu put out a video statement speaking directly to the Iranian people just earlier this week. Why do you believe that this is the time for an opportune regime change in Iran? I mean, regime change didn't exactly work out well in Iraq or in Afghanistan.
No, people are completely confused by this. You know, the fact that you are sending direct messages to the Iranian people is something very natural because we know the Iranian people oppose this regime. Mm-hmm. But we don't have a plan for regime change. You know, Israel didn't have and doesn't have any plans to intervene in the political affairs of any other country in the region when it comes to military action. Okay? However, it is our duty to communicate with those in Iran that want to confront this regime that is fighting for freedom, because the main victim so far of the Iranian regime has been the Iranian people. The Persian civilization is an old civilization. We have bonds with them for more than 2,000 years, and we want to restore those bonds. But the ones that are impeding that, are oppressing the Iranian people, Iranian women. You see the pictures. I don't have to convince you about that.
Masha Amani.
So Prime Minister very naturally is appealing to the Iranian people, and I think all of us have a duty to appeal to the Iranian people.
So I want to come back to the conclusion of this interview. It's not a question of if Israel will retaliate. Certainly, it is a question of when and how. What is your underlying objective in that retaliation? Is it to send a message to Iran? Is it to send a message to the world community? Is it to deter Iran's capabilities? Because like you said, you're not interested in regime change. So even if you were to attack Iran,
I didn't say I'm not interested. I said that we don't have a plan of regime change. Of course we are interested in change in Iran. Everybody is interested in change in Iran.
So why don't you outline for our viewers, what is your military objective? What is your strategic objective if and when, or as and when, Israel retaliates against Iran?
We have to deter this regime from continuing to attacking us. Mm-hmm. We have to send a message to the world that we are defending ourselves in a determined way, that we are not going to agree to such conduct in the future. And actually, by doing that, we are doing a great service to the world. We would prefer that others would do that as well, but if we are left alone in this, we're going to have to do it alone.
But how are you going to deter this regime in Iran, which is sworn to the destruction of Israel?
Right.
You either change the regime or there's no question of deterrence, is there?
Of course there's a question of deterrence because at the end of the day, if the Iranians don't pay a price, look, they have been actually fighting so far against Israel with Arabs, not with Persians. Okay? If you look very carefully at what happened in the last 30 years, they have been launching militias, especially based on Shiite orientation,
correct,
in order to fight the state of Israel. And they were sitting back in Iran, enjoying the situation. The only victims of that were Israel, the Arab countries in which all these forces were acting from, and the Iranian people. The regime has to start paying a price themselves. Otherwise, we will never deter them.
Is that also perhaps the reason why traditionally the countries that have always sort of spoken and about the Palestinian cause, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Oman, Bahrain, etc., have been very muted in the last week, 10 days, since the killings of Nasrallah or the operation against Hezbollah, or even what happened earlier this week, the Iranian rockets in Israel. Do they want you to get the job done?
Of course, that's obvious.
And if that happens, then you think that will change fundamentally the face of the Middle East?
We are building stability in the Middle East by creating the building blocks that will allow prosperity in the future. That means that you have to fight the terrorists and create military cooperation between the countries of the region and the powers that be. You have to create political stability, and then you will have economic stability. But if you don't fight, you don't confront those who are undeterred and that want to spoil that plan, then you have zero chance of fulfilling the plan.
One final word, for viewers here in India and in the subcontinent, this is similar to the India-Pakistan situation. Iran has found these cheap proxies. This is asymmetric warfare. The cost that they pay or the culpability that they have is far less than compared to a state-to-state war that potentially is what we are looking at right now. And that's what Pakistan has been doing against India for the last 30 years.
What's the difference? The difference is that once we have taken out the proxies, Iran decided to show their true face and attack us directly. That's their mistake. And for that mistake, they are going to pay.
All right. Ambassador Ruben Azhar, thank you very much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18.
Thank you very much.
Britain and the United States have raised fears that Russia has shared nuclear secrets with Iran in return for Tehran supplying Moscow with ballistic missiles. During their summit in Washington, D.C. last week, Britain's Prime Minister Keir Starmer and US President Joe Biden acknowledged that Iran and Russia were tightening their military cooperation. This was at a time when Iran is in the process of enriching enough uranium to complete its long-held goal to build a nuclear bomb. On Tuesday last week, Antony Blinken, the US Secretary of State, made a similar warning on a visit to London with his British counterpart David Lammy. For its part, he said, Russia is sharing technology which Iran seeks. This is a two-way street, including on nuclear issues. Britain, France and Germany then jointly warned last week that Iran's stockpile of highly enriched uranium had continued to grow significantly without any credible justification. They also added that Iran had accumulated 4 significant quantities that each could be used to make a nuclear bomb. So on Crux Decode, why would Russia be happy with a nuclear Iran? After all, a nuclear Iran would destabilize the Middle East. It's a place where Russia has huge stakes, particularly in Syria. Are Russia and Iran engaging in a trade-off where Iran supplies Russia with drones and missiles to bomb Ukraine, and in return, Russia gives Tehran nuclear expertise to help build a bomb? It is not clear how much technical know-how Tehran has to build a nuclear weapon at this stage, or just how quickly it could do it. Working with experienced Russian specialists or using Russian nuclear knowledge would help speed up the manufacturing process. Iran had struck a deal in 2015 to halt making nuclear weapons in exchange for sanctions relief from the United States and other Western countries. But that agreement was abandoned in 2018 by the then US President Donald Trump. Iran responded by breaching the agreed limits on the amount of enriched uranium it could process. The Western concern is that Iran is so close to being able to make a nuclear weapon, and that's been circulating for months, contributing to the tensions in the Middle East. And this is on top of the Israel-Hamas and Israel-Hezbollah tensions, which are already at fever pitch. Iran and its proxy in Lebanon, Hezbollah, are both supporters of Hamas, and Tehran's nuclear development is therefore being viewed as a direct threat by Israel. Soon after Vladimir Putin launched the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Iran began supplying the Shahid drones to Moscow. It helped Russia build a factory to make more bombs to send across to Ukraine. In April of this year, Iran launched a Russian-style missile and drone attack aimed at Israel, although much of it was intercepted and destroyed. Russia and Iran, though they've not historically been allies, have become increasingly united in their opposition to the West. It's also part of a wider axis of upheaval, which also includes China and North Korea. This is in many ways a return to the days of the Cold War. Also, America has opined that US intelligence had concluded that the first batch of high-speed Iranian Fatah 360 ballistic missiles with a range of up to 75 miles had already been delivered to Russia. And this has prompted a dramatic reassessment in Western thinking about the level of cooperation between Tehran and Moscow. According to the United Nations International Atomic Energy Agency, the Islamic Republic of Iran currently has sufficient uranium that is enriched to 60% to build 3 nuclear weapons if it decides to do so. Building a nuclear bomb would provide Iran with unprecedented diplomatic and military leverage in the Middle East. The ongoing war in Gaza could also provide Ayatollah Khamenei's regime with the opportunity to cross the nuclear threshold. The Iranian leadership perceives this war as stretching Israeli military resources to the limit, while US diplomatic focus and military resources are being stretched thin in fighting the Houthis in Yemen and, of course, Iran's proxies in Syria and in Iraq. At the same time, the United States is also committing financial and military assets to support Ukraine and Taiwan. So consequently, the Iranian leadership could conclude that the US and Israel, right now, at this given point of time, given all that they've been preoccupied with, lack the military resources to attack Iran's nuclear facilities. That's another reason why the Iranian leadership may decide to cross the nuclear Rubicon, because a nuclear Iran may no longer be viewed as a threat by Russia or China or any of the other non-partisan countries or non-aligned countries. Before Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine back in February of 2022, a nuclear-armed Iran was not in Russia's interests. First, because it risked starting a nuclear arms race in the Middle East, and that would threaten Russia's diplomatic and economic interests in the region. Regional stability is particularly important for Russia. Second, the minimum distance between Iran and Russia is approximately 650 kilometers. Iran's missiles can easily cover that distance. So understandably, the Russians did not want their southern border to be threatened by a nuclear-armed Iran. Third, Iran would also increase American commitment and presence in the Middle East if it were to acquire nuclear weapons. The Kremlin, which sees the US as a fundamental rival for regional influence in the Middle East, has always looked disapprovingly at the presence of America in the Middle East. Lastly, both Iran and Russia are rivals in places like Syria and the Caucasus. Nuclear weapons could potentially boost Iran's hand in its rivalries with Moscow. But in the post-Ukraine war era, a nuclear-armed Iran may in fact be in Russia's interests. A nuclear-armed Iran could offer Russia at least one of the advantages that a nuclear-armed North Korea has provided China. That is, increased diplomatic importance. A study by the Stanford University says that the heightened threat of North Korean missile attacks incentivizes both Japan and South Korea to avoid alienating Beijing. They are hoping that China will keep Pyongyang in check. In the case of a nuclear-armed Iran, the same could apply to Russia. To counter Iran's threats and its influences, Middle Eastern countries would have to prioritize further improving ties with Moscow. That would significantly increase Russia's influence and its leverage in the Middle East. A nuclear-armed Iran would also be economically and politically isolated. That would enable Russia to have more control over Iran, particularly its economic resources like oil and gas. Russia also intends to invest about $40 billion in Iran's oil and gas sector. Iran and Russia have already signed a $6.5 billion deal as part of this investment program. Despite becoming a nuclear-armed state, Iran would still be dependent on Russia diplomatically and politically. As a nuclear-armed Iran is likely to incur the diplomatic and economic wrath of the United States and its Western partners, having close ties with Moscow will remain a crucial interest for the Iranian leadership. In fact, relations could become even closer. Because of Iran's crucial military support to Russia, post-war Ukraine will be against the Iranian regime. Kiev could likely turn into a center for forces that are aligned against the Iranian regime. And to counter this, the Iranian regime, particularly its intelligence apparatus, would need help from Russia for intelligence gathering and to spy on what's happening in Ukraine.
Viewers, some Hindus have always felt that their group interests in this country have never got a fair hearing. They will tell you how the state has closed the door on pleas demanding that temples be freed from state control. They will tell you that their personal laws have been codified in the exception. They will tell you how every other religion and the adherents of that religion are allowed, viewers. They will tell you to practice according to their customs. They will tell you that the courts have never entertained pleas to give justice to Kashmiri Hindus who are the victims of a genocide. They will point out that the Kanchi seer was arrested in 2004 on Diwali night in Congress ruled Andhra on the orders of the High Court. They will tell you